Welcome back to Unknown Crimes, the podcast that dives into the most chilling and lesser-known criminal cases from around the world. I'm your host, Layla Johnson, and today's episode will take you into the heart of one of the most infamous cases of deception and murder, the story of Ronald Clark O'Bryan, a man whose sinister plan on Halloween night shocked the world, and the truth behind the Candyman case and explore how one man's greed led to an unspeakable tragedy. Ronald Clark O'Bryan, October 19, 1944, March 31, 1984, nicknamed the Candyman and the Man Who Killed Halloween, was an American man. O'Bryan lived with his wife, Daneen, in Deer Park, Texas, with their son Timothy and daughter Elizabeth, born 1969. O'Bryan worked as an optician at Texas State Optical in Sharpstown, Houston. He was a deacon at the Second Baptist Church, where he sang in the choir and ran a local bus program. On October 31, 1974, O'Bryan took his two children trick-or-treating in a Pasadena, Texas neighborhood. O'Bryan's neighbor and his two children accompanied them. After visiting a home where the occupant failed to answer the door, the children grew impatient and ran ahead to the next home while O'Bryan stayed behind. He eventually caught up with the group and produced 5 21-inch, 530mm Pixy Stix, which he would later claim he was given from the occupant of the house that had not answered the door. At the end of the evening, O'Bryan gave each of his neighbor's two children a Pixy Stix and one each to Timothy and Elizabeth. Upon returning home, O'Bryan gave the 5th Pixy Stix to a 10-year-old boy whom he recognized from his church. Before bed, Timothy asked to eat some of the candy he collected, and according to O'Bryan, he chose the Pixy Stix. Timothy had trouble getting the powdered candy out of the straw, so O'Bryan helped him loosen the powder. After tasting the candy, Timothy complained that it tasted bitter. O'Bryan then gave his son Kool-Aid to wash away the taste. Timothy immediately began to complain that his stomach hurt and ran to the bathroom where he began vomiting and convulsing. O'Bryan later claimed he held Timothy while he was vomiting, and the child went limp in his arms. Timothy O'Bryan died en route to the hospital less than an hour after consuming the candy. Timothy's death from poisoned Halloween candy raised fear in the community. Numerous parents in Deer Park and the surrounding area turned in candy their children got from trick-or-treating to the police, fearing it was laced with poison. The police did not initially suspect O'Bryan of any wrongdoing until Timothy's autopsy revealed that the Pixy Stix he had consumed was laced with a fatal dose of potassium cyanide. 4 of the 5 Pixy Stix O'Bryan claimed to have received were recovered by authorities from the other children, none of whom had consumed the candy. The parents of the 5th child became hysterical when they could not locate the candy after being notified by the police. The parents rushed upstairs to find their son asleep, holding the unconsumed candy. The boy had been unable to open the staples that sealed the wrapper shut. All 5 of the Pixy Stix had been opened, with the top 2 inches, 51mm, refilled with cyanide powder and resealed with a staple. According to a pathologist who tested the Pixy Stix, the candy consumed by Timothy contained enough cyanide to kill 2 adults, while the other 4 candies contained enough to kill 3 to 4 adults. O'Bryan initially told police that he could not remember which house he got the Pixy Stix from. Police became suspicious because O'Bryan and his neighbor had only taken their children to homes on 2 streets because it had been raining. Their suspicions increased after learning that none of the homes they visited had given out Pixy Stix. After walking the neighborhood with police 3 times, O'Bryan led them to the home where no one had answered the door. O'Bryan claimed that he went back there before catching up with the group. He said the owner of the home did not turn the lights on, but did crack the door open and hand him 5 Pixy Stix. He claimed to have only seen the man's arm, which he described as hairy. The home was owned by a man named Courtney Melvin. Melvin was an air traffic controller at William P. Hobby Airport and did not get home from work until 11 p.m. on Halloween night. Police ruled Melvin out as a suspect when over 200 people confirmed that he had been at work. As their investigation progressed, police learned that Ronald O'Bryan was over $100,000, equivalent to about $620. 000 in 2023 in debt, and had a history of being unable to hold a job. In the 10 years preceding the crime, O'Bryan had held 21 jobs. At the time of his arrest, he was suspected of theft at his job at Texas State Optical and was close to being fired. His car was about to be repossessed, he had defaulted on several bank loans, and the family home had been foreclosed on. Police discovered that O'Bryan had taken out life insurance policies on his children in the months preceding Timothy's death. O'Bryan took out additional $20,000, equivalent to about $123,600 in 2023, policies on both children, despite the objections of his life insurance agency. In the days preceding Timothy's death, O'Bryan had taken out yet another $20,000 policy on each child. The various policies totaled approximately $60,000, equivalent to about $370,700 in 2023. O'Bryan's wife maintained that she did not know about the insurance policies on her children's lives. Police also learned that on the morning after Timothy's death, O'Bryan had called his insurance company to inquire about collecting the policies he had taken out on his son. After learning that O'Bryan had visited a chemical supply store in Houston to buy cyanide shortly before Halloween 1974, he left without purchasing anything after learning the smallest amount available to purchase was 5 pounds. Police began to suspect that Ronald O'Bryan had laced the candies with poison in an effort to kill his children to collect on their life insurance policies. They believed he gave the other children poisoned candy in an effort to cover up his crime. Police repeatedly questioned O'Bryan, but he maintained his innocence. Police never discovered when or where O'Bryan bought the poison. He was arrested for Timothy's murder on November 5, 1974. He was indicted on 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. O'Bryan entered a plea of not guilty to all 5 counts. O'Bryan's trial began in Houston on May 5, 1975. During the trial, a chemist who was acquainted with O'Bryan testified that in summer 1973, O'Bryan contacted him asking about cyanide and how much would be fatal. A chemical supply salesman also testified that O'Bryan had asked him how to purchase cyanide. Friends and co-workers testified that in the months before Timothy's death, O'Bryan showed an unusual interest in cyanide and spoke about how much it would take to kill a person. O'Bryan's sister-in-law and brother-in-law testified that on the day of Timothy's funeral, he spoke of using the money from Timothy's insurance policy to take a long vacation and buy other items. As well, his wife rejected the claim that Timothy chose the Pixy Stix, stating that O'Bryan had, in fact, forced him to choose the sticks. O'Bryan continued to maintain his innocence. His defense mainly drew upon the decades-old urban legend concerning a mad poisoner who hands out Halloween candy laced, with poison or needles or candy apples with razor blades inserted. These stories have persisted despite the fact that there are no documented instances of strangers poisoning Halloween candy. The case and subsequent trial garnered national attention, and the press dubbed O'Bryan the Candyman. On June 3, 1975, a jury took 46 minutes to find O'Bryan guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. The jury took 71 minutes to sentence him to death by electrocution. Shortly after he was convicted, his wife filed for divorce. She later remarried, and her new husband adopted her daughter Elizabeth. Around this time, men sentenced to death under Texas law were confined to the Ellis Wine Unit near Huntsville, Texas. According to Reverend Carol Pickett, a former chaplain who worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, O'Bryan was shunned and despised by his fellow death row inmates for killing his child, and was absolutely friendless. The inmates reportedly petitioned to hold an organized demonstration on O'Bryan's execution date to express their hatred of him. O'Bryan's first execution date was set for August 8, 1980. His attorney successfully petitioned for a stay of execution. A second date was scheduled for May 25, 1982. That date was also postponed. Judge Michael McSpadden scheduled a third execution date for October 31, 1982, the 8th anniversary of the crime, and he offered to personally drive O'Bryan to the death chamber. It was to have been the first time Texas executed an inmate by lethal injection. This title would later go to Charles Brooks, Jr. The Supreme Court delayed the date yet again to give O'Bryan a chance to pursue an appeal to seek a new trial. A fourth date was scheduled for March 31, 1984. O'Bryan's lawyer sought a fourth stay on the basis that lethal injection was a cruel and unusual punishment. On March 28, a federal judge rejected the request. On March 31, 1984, shortly after midnight, O'Bryan was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit. His last meal consisted of T-bone steak, medium to well done, French fries and ketchup, whole kernel corn, sweet peas, lettuce and tomato salad with egg and French dressing, iced tea, sweetener, saltines, Boston cream pie, and rolls. O'Bryan's last words were, "What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. This execution is one of those wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I would forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended in any way during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, just as I forgive anyone who offended me in any way. And I pray and ask God's forgiveness for all of us respectively as human beings. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love. To those close to me, know in your hearts I love you one and all. God bless you all, and may God's best blessings be always yours. Ronald C. O'Bryan, P.S. During my time here, I have been treated well by all TDC personnel. During the execution, a crowd of 300 demonstrators gathered outside the prison cheered while some yelled, "Trick or treat!" Others showered anti-death penalty demonstrators with candy. Ronald O'Bryan is buried in Forest Park East Cemetery in Webster, Texas. Timothy is buried in Forest Park Lawndale Cemetery in Houston. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Remember, the darkest crimes are closer than you think, and they're always watching. Until next time, stay aware and stay curious.